Sorry, guys. Distracted moment.
So all participants are informed that this meeting is being recorded. We didn't have that on the other
No,
one,
I
so it's a good thing
know.
you didn't.
That's why I missed it.
Could you list the attendees verbally, please?
Teresa Fuller, CAO. Mayor Rob McDonald, Councillor Jackie Northey. You guys are testing me, aren't you? Deputy Mayor Brian Guest, Councillor Kyle McIntosh, and Councillor Cindy Oram, and Municipal Treasurer Natasha Martin.
Do we have any online attendees anymore?
Right now, we just have Kevin, and somehow Stu disengaged.
Okay. No public hearing. Any additions to the agenda? Would somebody approve the agenda? Thank you, Brian. All in favor? Carried. We've all had a chance to read the minutes of the last meeting. Do I have to move those because I was the only one that was here? Yeah. Okay. I'll move that we've approved the minutes of the October 7th meeting as presented. All in favor? Carried. No delegation, no bylaw. New and unfinished business. Variance report. What do you got for us, Teresa?
All righty. Well, we typically present a balanced variance report. In the past, the financials we've presented to council consist of a variance report, which we're going to go through, and then a monthly statement. And in the past, for optional, I guess, is we can provide like complete check listings for what the payments go out to, like what we pay on a regular basis. I guess it can be up to council how detailed you want to go. But for now, what I'll do is I'll go through the balance variance report with you, and then if you want to open up the dialogue about additional information that you would like to see presented, then we can kind of follow up with that. So what we have is there's a revenue section, and this typically is reflected at 100%. Municipal, like it's, as we move through the year, it's always reflected just the budget, what we have all come in, and then we reflect the financials or the revenue. It's a little bit different than business related, where you always reflect what the income is. And it's more, I forget the terminology. Apologize, but what we do is we do a tax or a trial balance on taxes collected, and then through that we reflect what's collected and what's not. And that isn't typically reflected in this. However, when you get to the section on other revenue from all sources, that you get a better idea of, okay, we budgeted $25,000 for penalties and costs on taxes. To date, we've received $24,351. And so I typically don't go through the revenue in great detail, other than we're sitting at about 80% of what we budgeted for the year. So sitting that we still have another 3 months of the year, roughly we're right on track. And so as well, when you look to our overall revenue section, we've budgeted to receive $1,176,441, and to date we've received $1,676,300. And that basically reflects a higher income because at 142%, because it also includes our grant funds. So if we put the grant funds for some of the projects right within the revenue, then we would under collect in taxes. So that's why it looks a little more. And then general administrative revenues, we're sitting at 182%. And as you can see, we tend to under budget a bit because it doesn't serve you to over budget in this area. So general services and supplies, licenses and permits, rentals and lease revenue, other revenues, so they're kind of generic. And then we have the firefighting services, which again, for firefighting responses, motor vehicle responses, it's really difficult to predict. So we tend to under budget as revenue in those areas. Building permit fees, again, on a good year when we have, let's say a significant building like the school in the past, the seed cleaning plant, UFA, that can also equate into additional building permit fees coming in. And the shop, road, streets, walks and lighting.
Teresa, can I just stop you for a second?
Sure.
When it says policing special tax, is that, it hasn't been paid out, is that because it was an expectation for this year and it actually doesn't occur, we just haven't paid it?
Well,
We just haven't,
what happened is in the past, we used to collect it on the utility bills.
Okay,
So we passed a special tax bylaw and we were collecting it on the utility bills. And then municipal affairs, when they were doing our municipal accountability program review, they're like, you can't do it that way. It was discouraged.
okay.
So we had to rescind the policing tax, and now we no longer have that as a revenue or a special tax. So that's why it's not budgeted or reflected in there.
And
So
the
right
province angry
now,
when we showed citizens what they were paying for that. Right?
That makes a lot of sense.
What a
shame.
it was a great way to do it because you had renters and churches and, you know, a trailer park, like
Spread it
everybody
out.
was contributing to it,
Yeah.
right? Whereas now it's the main way we pay for it is through taxation. It's embedded as an operating cost, which tends to overinflate our operating budget.
Thank you.
Shop, roads, streets, walks and lighting. So we have equipment rental, other revenues. And again, this is sitting at 283%, but you look at our other revenue, we projected, let me see here. Well, we're lower, but somehow higher. Oh, it is the gain loss on tangible capital assets. So, and I believe we had sold some items, so that's why. All right, so what I have done in the past is just kind of looked at each department to make it a little faster. And if there's any areas that you want to have questions, then feel free to stop me, but the revenue section is overall, unless, I guess, might be a good opportunity to ask. How detailed do you want me to go?
Let's just do Cole's notes on this first one.
Okay. Sounds good, perfect. So water supply and distribution, revenue wise, we're sitting at 75%, which is a good thing, again, sitting where we're at the year. Sanitary sewage service and treatment, same thing. We're sitting at about 67%. It's a little bit lower, but sewer receiving, we're still sitting pretty good. So I have no explanation there as to why it's a little lower revenue wise, because the sewer charges are basically embedded into the utility bills. So, and that's based on those projections. Garbage collection and disposal, 67% recycling revenue. We got $132 in grant funds for our hazardous waste roundup. In the past, we would get maybe about 800. This year, we only got $132. Utility penalties, we projected 4,500. We're at 6,350. Family community support services. This is, again, the revenue portion where it reflects what we get from the province, what we get from Camrose County as revenue. And then there's a little bit more in there because of the like, I think it also includes what the town contributes to. So the 24,000 budgeted is what we get from the province, and then it bumps it up to 32 with the obligatory town portion. Cemetery revenue sitting at 64%. Development permits, we're a little higher than we anticipated. We planned for 1,000, we're at 1,275. Sale of land, we don't typically put a budget number in there because we like to actually, any of the land sales dollars, we try to move into reserves rather than using them within the operating budget. Office rent, we're sitting at 84%. So we have the building that's behind the fire hall. Oh, not the fire, like
The
it's
museum.
the fire hall museum. And moving on to the recreation, which we have not functioned earlier in the year, so that's why there's not reflecting in time. But I am told that our check from Cameron County contributes $30,000 a year annually to the operation costs of the arena, and that check is on its way. Parks revenue, again, we're a little higher than we expected, which is a good thing. And when you look at overall our municipal revenue, we budgeted 1,986,000, and so far to date, we're at 2,299,000. Again, embedded within there are some of our grants. Now to the fun stuff, the expenses, or was there any questions before I move on? Okay. Council and other legislative is sitting at about 47%. And that is because, well, a good portion is because the meeting fees for council, we paid the other council half of the year, or a little over half of the year. But overall, we're sitting well within what we budgeted for that code. General administrative and other. So as we move on, there's some areas that are higher than like have a higher percentage use. So what I've done is underline them so that I can point them out to you and provide information on that. So administrative course fees, we budgeted 2,000 and spent 2,199. We also have web-based courses and training available. So that was kind of a deal we had where we can get, there was up to 20 to 30 different trainings that are all web-based. So if you're interested in any of those, let me know and I can get you a schedule of, like, we have them all available online. They're about an hour, hour and a half at a time. So there's everything from, and there's a whole series that are based for elected officials if you have the interest. And overall within this expense code, we're sitting at 75%. Firefighting and preventative services. We have the town fire truck here that we had only budgeted $2,000 for, but it sounds like there was some pressure tests and stuff, was it? Yeah. Okay, so there was an inspection, pressure cap, filler cap, an air tank, and they had to check an electronic compressor and sensors. So this is just to make sure that it's properly pressures up for use and with the, like when they attach a fire hose to it and everything. That was the town truck. And let me see here. Overall, within that department, we're sitting at 39%. So they're really sitting quite good overall for expenses. Disaster services and emergency measures. Again, we're sitting at 19%. Bylaw service. So this is where we, like we have Camrose County comes typically, is it, isn't it 4 times or once a week during months from March till September, October, and then November through till February, they come twice a month. So this is where we bill them, or where we reflect those expenses. And then there's cat and dog control fees. where we have Bull McDonald Kennels come by and patrol twice a month, or if they get a call out, they respond and deal with it. This is where the policing requisition expense, so where we're actually paying the policing now. And then building inspector, there was one location that we had the building inspector come through just to confirm. And I apologize, I don't recall which site that was. But overall in bylaw services, we're sitting at 27%. And within our shop department, salaries are a little higher in this section, but what we typically do with Public Works is we take each of the staff and then we break out and project percentages of their pay or of their wages out into the different departments. And so basically they spent a bit more time in the shop than what we projected within our percentages. So you're gonna find that as we go through the BVR, there will be some areas of Public Works where the salaries may be higher or quite a bit lower than what we projected. So when staff complete their timesheets, they actually record what their activities were for each department. So it might not quite match what we budgeted per se. And then freight, postage, and phone. We purchased new cell phones so that they would have the capability to load the meter reading process. We upgraded to Neptune 360 so they can take a belt clip in the phone and it reads the meters through the phone and through an app. It's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it makes
and
it so much easier.
yeah, and if you have a water issue or whatever, it can actually tell you how frequently, if your water's leaking all the time, or if the frequency, even from the readings, we could probably even tell if you're home or not.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we actually had one guy call in just the other day, his water bill was substantially high. And so Marie they call it a data log, and you could pinpoint, it's by the hour for the whole billing cycle, and we could pinpoint exactly when the leak or whatever started to when it ended. And basically he figured out that they don't use the house. It's kind of like a vacation house kind of thing. And his sister had been there and she forgot to shut off the outdoor faucet, and
Oh, boy.
the problem was solved.
Wow.
So it's like, yeah, it's down to the hour. It's
That's
pretty
pretty
impressive.
slick.
Yeah, so, and that's where I guess like with the purchase of the rest of those water meters and implementing the rest of that, this is also another tool that we can use to potentially isolate leaks too, where we can load all the meter readings, do a run and isolate a leak if we can't find it from the surface, right?
Okay.
Because sometimes in abandoned homes or older homes, we found where their basement was full of water.
So is anybody able to call the office and say, hey, I have concerns about my water, and we would send somebody out from Public Works to
Yeah,
go?
and it
with that?
takes
Okay.
like no time at all. I give Murray some numbers, like the code for your guys' water meter.
Mhm.
He goes up by and he doesn't have to come to your door or anything. It's
Just drives by.
drives by
Wow.
and comes back to the office like 10 minutes later. And here's the email and boom.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, like if we started this program in July or August.
Yeah.
And
Roughly.
because I do all the utility billings, it's like, I love it. So if you guys ever want to check it out,
Absolutely.
come on by. I'm still learning it, but.
That'll be part of the
It's exciting.
facilities tour.
Count me.
Yeah.
We take a drive past each one of our houses.
Just
and
Rob's,
check
just
the whole
Rob's.
thing.
Yeah.
Make sure we load all everybody's radio frequency reads, eh?
Yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah. Road, streets, walks, and lighting. As we go a little farther down there, where I've got the mobile 406 John Deere tractor, it had a hydraulic valve leak that needed repair, so that's why we're over on that code. The chainsaw, I believe there was some type of unexpected repair there. And unfortunately with the Kubota, well, both Kubotas, the Kubota tractor and the mower, we ended up having like tire and flat repairs on those. And the ball door generator, there was some additional repairs required on that and servicing. And often it's kind of difficult again with the fuel. We do basically a generic prediction, but sometimes we're not always right on. And if they use one piece of equipment more than another, it could result in the fuel being higher, or basically fuel's higher than what we projected. And that's where you can see as well, there's other areas that the fuel is a bit higher. And but overall, when you look within that department, we're at 65%. So, and then the airport, we had the propane tank out there, it was refilled. And I believe the propane, like it's for heating the building out there.
I honestly couldn't. I'm assuming it's.
And I think like I'm pretty sure there's a washroom in that building and stuff, right? So they have to keep the heat at a certain level so that it doesn't freeze, but. Anyhow, we're sitting at 109% in that one, so just a little higher than what we planned. Storm sewer repairs and maintenance, we're sitting at 44%. Water supply and distribution. Our travel and subsistence was a little bit higher there, where we sent a staff to water course. And we kind of had budgeted, so anticipating many of those courses would be online or not entirely available due to COVID, right? So they did actually have to attend physically, so there was, hotel and whatnot involved. But the code itself is sitting at 75%. Sanitary sewage service and treatment, we're sitting at 67%. Garbage disposal and collection and disposal, still sitting at 60%. And then the
Waste
waste
management paid us.
I was just gonna go into that because I'm like, Natasha, what? What's going on here? So what happens is when we do our cleanup every year,
Spring and the fall cleanup.
spring and fall cleanup, we collect money from residents for the items that have a tipping fee. So that's why it's reflecting it, and we record them within this code. So that when we get our tipping fee charges, it kind of balances out. But we get our tipping fee charge from Camrose County at the end of the year, but this reflects revenue we've already collected from the residents that have paid for stuff to be disposed.
Yeah. It was kind of questionable at first, but.
Yeah.
It does make sense when we get the bill.
Yeah.
If you're selling the garbage, good work.
Yeah,
Well done.
right?
You're welcome.
We get money to take garbage with. The recycling, the toxic roundup is always an interesting one. Unfortunately, it was $4,266 to dispose of the recycled items. So that's everything from oil, fluorescent tubes, paint cans, paint, spray paint bombs, can bomb. And we do it every second year. In the past, the grant from the province was substantially better. It has not been great. And so the recycling as a municipality represents an expense to us. So I don't know whether we administratively had conversations whether we should be billing a recycling fee and put it on the utility bill so that we can offset this charge. But we offer the service technically, well, every second year. We reduced it to every second year. So it begs the question, if it costs us $4,300 every second year, should we, collect the 2021 or 2150, each year to offset it and build that out as a charge within the utility bill? Some food for thought anyway. But the recycling department is just a bit higher because of that charge being the cost to process the recycling. And then the contribution to FCSS, and this is the collaborative contribution to BDSS and the U Foundation. Cemeteries and crematoriums, We broke the bank at 390%. Sorry, our insurance, we projected to be $2. It's only $7.80. Sorry about that. But anyhow, we're at 39%. Tourism, 64%. Subdivision land and development. This is where our annual, like, we get that bill from Camrose County for, basically it's development support. I can call them with whatever questions and whatnot. Rented buildings, the expenses on those, we're sitting at 46%. Recreation facilities and programs. And so the arena is reflected a bit higher on their roof repairs, or sorry, repairs and maintenance. And that was including the reshingling of the arena roof is embedded in there at 42,000. So that's why it looks a little wonky. But overall, the code is sitting at 76%. Parks, again, parks, we can't predict again. We do try and predict as best we can the percentage, but sometimes we still end up being a little off. And then grants to organizations, the beautification committee. This one is reflected a little higher because it includes last year's unused beautification funds. The community center, we have a code there called cultural facility repairs and maintenance. And this is where we just included the Happy Game window replacement, which that was covered through the MSP grant as well. And so it's still reflected as an expense, but we have it covered through grant. And as we wrap up that code, we're sitting at about 98% for the community center. And the museum, we're sitting at 85%. And as we get to the bottom with our total expenses and our net, and let me see here. We are sitting year to date at 914,260 of revenue over our projected expenses. And
So we're sitting pretty good.
So that's at 70%, so you're actually 5%. It's a good number.
Yes.
Because you should be at 75 if we were exactly right
Yeah.
each time.
Yeah, and truthfully, we still have, like, we have paid for a significant amount of the lagoon project within these funds too. So, but then I guess you have your lagoon project here on the next page. So we've already expended 383,566 on the lagoon. And we actually haven't been paid for the lagoon. The Alberta Water Wastewater Management Project and the ICIP, the federal grant, we're still scheduled to receive those to reimburse what we've spent on the lagoon. I'm just waiting for a final bill on the lagoon. Do you have any questions or anything else you want me to get more information on?
So I don't need any more, the balance sheet though that's the next thing, right?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
Yeah, so
That's a monthly statement, but do we do a balance sheet? Is it there too? I didn't notice. I only have one reason I'm asking, not because I want to see it necessarily. I was just wondering, I've heard, Brian has talked about being debt free and so forth. So where are we with assets versus liabilities? Are we at a?
If you look at the monthly statement,
Yep.
So we have our general account in the first column.
Okay, yep.
So in our general account, we have 895,096,
Yep.
decimal 39.
Yep.
And in term deposits, we have in reserves the 948,873.
Okay.
And
So our
there is
total is
no,
1.8.
there is no debt.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
the only debt the town carries is the cosign that we get for the golf course to do their clubhouse.
Oh,
So
And
it's not even
also-
actually a debt that we carry, we just co-sign the loan.
yeah.
So, and if you also, like, when we go through our financial statements, there's a reflection of debt within the Highway 1221.
Okay.
So there's a component or a portion of their debentures that is reflected as our debt as well.
Okay.
And the auditor typically includes that within our financial statements as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you need a motion to accept the BVR?
Yes, please.
Brian, thank you. All in favor? Carried.
If I may, Sir Chair, I don't know if I should call Sir Chair or what, or. As we wrap up, was there any additional information that this council would like to see shared forward specific to financials?
This is just a little bit different than, they're not different, I mean, they're just very detailed.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just like, I guess when I can see this on a general account, that's all really, that's just a balance
Yeah,
sheet.
we don't
so-
go over this every meeting.
Yeah,
No,
so.
it's like
just
a
occasional.
quarter.
We go over this once.
thing.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that much detail.
You guys don't want to see checks, you know,
No,
how much
not
you
really.
support local,
No,
you know.
no.
How much to each fuel company in town. and- Okay, thank you.
The monthly statement, anybody have any questions there? Is there anything you want to call our attention to?
I'm just gonna get you to sign it. I always figure it's a good thing when we're still sitting at a decent balance in our accounts, even though we have paid that 400 and some, or 380 some on the lagoon, right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of handy, I'm sure.
Would somebody care to make a motion that we accept that as information?
Oh, do so.
Thank you, Jackie. All in favor? Carried. Roof of the curling rink.
So, we have applied for a grant with the municipal stimulus funds. And we've gotten approved for $30,261. And then with the funds, like the arena roof came in lower, so we had an additional $10,578 to access for our curling rink roof as well. And so we have a total of $40,839. And currently they expect us to spend the funds by December 31st. What happened was we received a variety of quotes. We started out kind of thinking that it was a fairly minor repair and 30,000 would be more than adequate. Because there's some areas of it that are leaking, some are not. And then as different contractors were looking, they each started to come up with their own proposal of what they felt should have been done. So we had presentations of quotes where resheeting over top, or we had actually a really like a low quote for just, you know, repairing some of the leaking areas that could extend the roof functionality for another 5 to 10 years. Then we had a complete replace and repair. But then as we started having conversations with contractors, another contractor came forward and said, hey, you know, I'll give you a quote for sheeting over top, but I have big concerns over the load bearer, and you might want to talk to an engineer. So we had Richards Engineering, or Richards had done an evaluation on the whole building in the past. So we called him up with this recommendation because it's a steel, like it's steel frame bid or steel frame underneath, and the steel frames are like 4 feet apart. And what's happened is when they do regular sheeting, as they get up on there, it buckles or shifts, and then the sheeting comes separate, compounded with the rubber. The screws and the rubbers get loosened, and it's just, yeah, it sort of turned into a bigger project than what we expected. And so one company was able to give me a really generic quote for like standing seam, which is really what should have been put up there in the first place. But it was like $175,000, and that's just kind of crazy. So anyhow, we're running out of time because winter's fast approaching. So that's why the recommendation to request a time extension so that we can potentially utilize these funds in the new year, once we decide which way we want to go. So.
That sounds reasonable. It's a
Is that a
reasonable-
motion?
Yeah, it is.
All in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Strategic plan review. Or a small part of it anyway.
So this is just a review that council had done earlier in the year, and my apologies, I guess I could have updated the report card a bit better, but I figured it would be just a starting point of discussion. Whether you want to just go ahead with a review, or if you want to proceed with like a full-on engagement with community and kind of build it up from bare bones, where we have discussions about, you know, what are our strengths, weaknesses, what do we do well. Yeah, I guess I would, where I'm stumbling a little bit is specific to economic, which yes, we're promoting in governance, but sometimes like within the environmental and infrastructure study. Right now, my original plan was we have an infrastructure study from 2013 that we're picking away at its priorities. And I was going to build a capital plan based on what we could afford for the next 5 years around that. However, in the meantime, I have businesses, I have 2 businesses in particular coming to me that are looking for land. And so I've engaged initially with some conversations with our engineer to do a preliminary study and plan for the whole industrial area. It starts at like 30 grand, but then from there, we'll have a better idea of it's, you know, basically going to be in the millions, but in the same token, to do just a piece of it is kind of like buying 1 egg from a carton, right? So you gotta pay more for that 1 egg versus what you would for the whole carton. So if I have somewhat of an elevation, what I basically need in the industrial area to consider selling lots is elevations, so that when I sell a lot, I know what to tell them and say, you need to have this elevation at this level, then the drainage must go this way or whatever, right? So when you look at all of our industrial area as a whole parcel, that there's a dedicated plan as to how it's all going to work as it is built and fit together. And so right now, we, you know, for some of those inner land pieces that I'm having conversations with potential purchasers, they really want to have water and sewer available. They would like to have the alley access available in some of those deeper pieces of land. So that's where it goes back to this, you know, the environmental infrastructure, where right now, looking at creating that capital plan based on repairs of existing stuff is great, but you know, how do we plan for, you know, some growth where in theory, having additional business / industrial assessment basically gives us more money as a community. So that's a pretty deep discussion. Sorry for an initial strategic plan, but that's kind of where I'm at from an administrative point of view. But as for, I guess you guys can just open it up and let me know which way you want to go with the strategic plan.
So just a couple of questions. When I was reading through these, obviously, I think the November 5th and 16th would be really useful as to where our role is in all of those pieces, because it's not just us.
Yep.
It'll also be some other organizations and chambers and that sort of thing. But is it, so I think about that. I'll just give you an example of promotion of the town and business. So this last year, I have created a business directory because I couldn't get a hold. If we were trying to do things we couldn't get. So I've got that now. I've got it updated to right now. Now there's still home-based businesses and
Yeah.
web-based businesses that have to come on, that I've got some of them, but not all of them.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking, because you probably have heard of the Flagstaff Economic Development. I was really thinking something like that, but Bashaw created would be
Yeah.
really great for our community. And it, of course, would require somebody to apply for a grant because that's where they got the money for it. It's a grant.
Yeah.
And so I'm just asking, is that a role of town council or is that a role of another organization in the community?
It could be either.
It could be either, and I guess, like, these are always areas where I don't wanna come across as making excuses. But like, we run a fairly tight ship where, you know, economic development typically would land on my plate, but again, it's one of those things where I don't have a lot of, like, it takes some creativity and dedicated effort.
It takes
And
somebody to do
I
it.
will admit, I do not have the time to do it the justice that it would
Right.
require. And from my perspective at this point in time, what I'd like to see happen on the administrative or municipal front is, like, I've got some pricing for a new website. Like, our website is outdated and it really needs, it's kind of like an old filing cabinet. When I go
It
looking
is.
for anything in there, I use the search bar,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, you know, that in itself is like, okay, if I can't find stuff fast in there with the way it's set up, then how can I expect a resident to, right? Like, it's just not resident and invitationally user friendly.
Yeah, it's not
So-
really mobile friendly either. It's.
No,
It's difficult.
no,
Yeah.
it is not.
Exactly.
And that's the big problem with it, right?
Yeah.
So I've got pricing with, you know, like building, with plans to build into the new budget with accessing maybe MSI dollars or whichever, right?
How much do you think it's gonna cost in your pricing? What kinds of?
I am sitting at about 75,
It's way too
7,600,
high.
yeah.
We'll talk about that. Because we've got locals that do it
Okay.
and we've got,
Sweet,
yeah,
and like if then I can, if you let me know who to
yeah,
get in
I'll
touch
talk
with,
to you about
then we
it.
can
Yeah, for other things.
have
But
a-
anyway, as far as
do quote.
the other issue, like I said, so would you see, as an example, if I thought I would go and look, I know about Flagstaff, I've talked to them, I've asked them to provide the model to me a long time ago. And they had to go back, she had to go back to her board and the board wouldn't approve it, wouldn't give me the model.
Oh,
And supposedly they've got really good results. However, it doesn't matter because we can create our own anyway, but I just wondered where we would go to place that. So who should apply for the grant? Who should look at what that model would look like, whether it be the Chamber of Commerce, should it be the town, who should it be? So that's just a question I had.
I guess from my perspective, the Chamber of Commerce could be the logical spot.
Yeah.
I have, in my dialogue, like, yes, I participate with the Chamber of Commerce. We have tried to have conversations about implementing, let's say, for example, a business license bylaw. Business license bylaw where maybe we collect $20 from each business annually. This gives us, so 10 would maybe, or even embed the chamber membership in there so that we can create a database. Where I sit as, in my role, I have only information specific to, if you give me business information for a business development permit, I can share it with you. Most of the information I collect from businesses for taxation purposes. So within the FOIP law, I can only collect information for a specific purpose and I can only use it for that specific purpose. So if a business doesn't come forward to me and say, hey, I'm a new business in town, here's my contact information, can you put it on my website? Then I can do it. But right now, within the business license bylaw, we could embed a partnership where it covers maybe some administrative dollars to keep a database of businesses, to, you know, update that book, that the tourism book that we do every year that continually has inaccurate contact information.
Yeah.
You know, that we get the flag
Well,
about.
Well, and not only that, really nowadays, so we're in a position in life right now where half the people like paper and half the people like digital. And that's not going away for a few years yet until people who like the papers don't want the papers anymore. So, you know, and digital becomes, so we've got to have both. And I think that it's easy to update digital really quickly. So our website and any database and so forth, but a little harder to do the ones on paper.
And truly, we're still working on even like all of our social groups in town. After they have all their AGMs, we never get information, and then they call us and say, why isn't the information updated on the website? And we're like, thank you for calling us, can you give us the information?
No.
Anyway, okay, well, like maybe we can talk about that later too. I just was
Yeah, like,
curious.
and unless council feels a different way, I think the chamber is sort of the logical spot for it, but, you know, if we apply for a grant and then we get funding to, you know, fund a position or something for it or whatever, like, I'm not sure even how other places have done it.
I'll find out, but is the chamber a legal entity though? Do you know if they have a society status?
I believe so,
I think they have to.
because they have
yeah.
to report, like, as part of the Alberta Chamber, there's a
Yeah.
certain,
Yes.
Well, one of the things, right, I mean, you could also be talking about making an economic development committee, right? That might be one of the things, so then that would be its own
Yeah.
thing that would liaise with
yeah.
the chamber.
But do you
And
find
that's
that
an
committee
interesting
that-
idea, because I believe we actually have an economic like a bylaw. There is an old bylaw that is still, but it was.
Because I know the money they got from the Western Economic Development Association.
The Rita?
No, it's a Western, Canadian Western, I'm using the wrong word, but anyway, that's where they got the money and I was going to go look for it there too.
Yeah. Yeah, that would
So
be great.
anyway, we can talk about later. I didn't mean to hijack it. I just had a question, that's all.
Yeah.
So back to the strategic plan.
Well, that's part of the strategic plan.
Exactly.
Well, and my view, and I don't know if I'm the only one, but to me, I would like to see some of it reorganized, and I absolutely would like public consultation on at least some key areas. I think there are some common sense areas of this council and administration. We know, like the website, for instance. I don't think we really need public consultation on that, because I don't think we like what we hear, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But I would see a few areas that could perhaps be merged and used, taking that public feedback. So that's my thoughts on that.
And I guess I just, with the number of individuals that put their names forward for council, it's a pretty good indicator that it sounds like it could be a great time to do some public engagement where people will be.
Totally.
And I guess it just might be a little tricky with, you know, COVID wise and whatnot. We might have to have some electronic means to collect information too, but.
Yeah, it's been a little while since we've had any town meetings or anything like that.
I mean, attendance is often spotty at these types of things, right? You can get really high attendance at some, and then you can get 2 people at another, so.
Yeah,
What has been successful in the past was sending invitations specific to stakeholder groups. That was very effective, and that's where like having a communication person is so valuable. In the past, you know, I've had staff that really embraced and engaged that, and they were the ones where between her and I, I'm like, hey, can you do up an invitation specific and just get it out to each of these? And she hand delivered them all to everybody, and we had, golly, we probably had 30 people. I don't, Jackie, were you at that one?
I was for part of it, and yeah, it was at least that.
Yeah, it was really good. It was really good. And then, like, in the past, we did have like a consultant do the process. So, but in the same token, you know, we want to keep it
they
as
are
cost
really
effective.
expensive for, I think, very little bang for the buck.
Yeah.
What about surveys as part of like a mail stuffer? Is that an option too?
What's that?
Doing a survey through a mail stuffer for the utility bills or something like that?
I don't think we mix and match, but I think you could do it.
But even the
Yeah,
preliminary,
a survey might
which
get a little bit
would-
of groundwork, kind of get a
Exactly.
starting point when you do have a meeting.
Yeah, and focus in on you know, key areas
Yes.
from this, at least initially. You know, you don't want, I'm not going to do a 14-page mail survey, I'm sorry.
But that's what I was just gonna say, I think you need both, a mail one that and a digital one.
Yeah.
They both need to have occur because the young people will not fill out mail surveys and hand them in, but they might hit up the computer and hit type of it.
Yeah, or like a Facebook link where it's like.
Yeah, yeah.
you hit the little circles.
Yeah, that communications would be really good.
So do you want to proceed with maybe having a dedicated meeting or some discussions on what do you want to see on the survey and generating the survey? Could that be the starting point, or do we want to do some physical engagement and book some consultation?
I would suggest that we take a little time to think on this, let some counselors get their feet wet.
Sounds good.
This is a big brick to throw at them on day one.
Dodge wrench. No.
I think the information here is really valuable context for the work we're going to be doing, right? So I really value that it's here for us on day one.
Well, and it is a lot of information, and I apologize. I guess I kind of took it for granted with having fairly familiar council members where, you know, you're not starting fresh.
And it's good they have the information and, you know, can take some time to digest it.
Yep.
And
Maybe take some time to digest it, come back and meet and kind of discuss what
Yeah.
we feel would be relevant to put together on a survey type of format, which could be our framework to having some public
Yeah.
consultation.
I honestly think if you did a mail out and digital opportunity, that then council could, that you wouldn't need to hire a consultant, because as council, we can group them into the groups and just make some decisions. So I think that really we just have to decide what kind of information we're looking for, why, you know, and
Yeah.
for what purpose, because you just don't want to collect information to collect information and then go from there, and then take our time at it, and all have to be done one day.
Sticky notes, yeah. Well, I mean, we can batch it too, right? I mean, recreation can do one thing, infrastructure, right? If there's all sorts of.
Recreation is a very, that's another trigger point for me, because I feel as an administrator, you know, trying to manage and continue to have a facility function where we're throwing money at it. We're throwing a lot of money at it. I feel like I have thrown, like, if I went back over the time that I started here from 2015, we thrown a lot of money in there. And,
well, $60,000 a year before COVID.
well, the thing is, from an operational standpoint, we have a shortfall or deficit that's offset through taxes within our operating budget of $50,000 a year every year. And so when it comes to like repairs and upkeeping the building, and right now, you know, with I can get money, $90,000 to replace all the furnaces in there, but is the building gonna stand? Or like the boards all around the ice, you know what I mean? Those need to be replaced because there's screws popping and there's nothing to screw them to.
You don't mow the lawn while the house is on fire.
Pretty much, right?
And the reality is, I think it's important to, you know, maybe it's really great to kind of look at that from a strategic planning perspective, because, you know, what percentage of the community actually uses those facilities versus other recreational
There is
activities.
not a strong business case. I'm
No,
sorry.
there is not.
bad
That's my
news.
point. That's my point.
We also
So-
know loss leaders though too, right? I mean, recreation's always a little bit of a black hole too.
But here's the thing, here's the kicker. On a bad year, there's 85 kids. On a good year, there's 112. Like, I know these stats because I do them so that we can get
And do we
our
know county versus town in those stats?
40% is county. 40% typically.
60% is town.
That surprises me.
60% is kind of a, like, there's also in there other,
Hmm.
right? So it's a little confusing because there's Lacombe County. So we get a grant for whoever attends, like there's a formula, whatever the
Yeah.
shortfall is based on how many individuals are actually participating.
I'd be really curious to have that a little more detailed. Which county residents,
I got that.
which.
All services, not
Yeah.
just arena, but
Yes.
Well, all services is pretty challenging because
on things like library, I think Cindy's collecting that now, right? Like,
Yeah, we are now this year.
yeah,
okay,
so some of,
yeah, I wasn't
Well,
sure. of the
I think
town.
it's been collected for the last
Organization.
right,
couple
but
of years.
member of councils there
It's been
could
collected for
perhaps
a
bring that
couple years,
information
20
back.
years.
Yeah, it's a tricky spot because like you guys are on the south part of Camrose County.
Yeah.
So then you have individuals crossing the county lines for recreation, for school and whatnot here because geographically it makes sense.
Mhm.
But when it comes to dollars and taxation and supporting each other, so far Macomb County is the only one willing to cross a county border and give us cash for
Really?
operating.
No for Stellar?
Statler told us to go back to Camrose County.
I'm like,
Stellar,
you
we
read
probably
back
don't
that
have
far?
as many Stellars
Oh,
though,
yeah.
probably. We'd have
Because
more
that was a
with,
very humbling meeting to
and
go
no
to
capital.
with Penny.
I believe it,
It was
and
a
I am
very,
so glad the two of you went
it was a
because
very humbling meeting to go to.
Don't remember now which county.
And
it
actually,
was
I
that
lied,
told
because
their counties
Anoka,
to-
I gave us money.
Hmm.
Anoka County gave us money.
I think one of the other things with this, right, is obviously one of the things we can take information in from the public, but some of this information can flow to the public as well, right? So I think there are some pieces, right, that would be valuable. Like I'm surprised, right, that the number on a good year is 112. My gut would be that there are more arena users than that.
Mhm.
And so I'll tell you, my gut was wrong by about 50%.
Mhm.
So, you know, I think some
I
of
looked
that.
at it for a long time and thought, oh, wow, there's a lot of money going in for a few kids.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess the thing, then maybe that's not really the best numbers to present because we only ever get funded specific to kids. So
There's
we
no
do
adults.
have 2 adult teams,
Right.
but they self-fund, like they
Yeah,
pay
they just
their
rent
ice time.
and that's their deal.
They pay their ice time. And I somehow, for whatever reason, you know, the counties don't want to include that. Like, yeah, from an operational
Would
sense.
that information include school use for phys ed classes as well?
No, because I don't get any numbers. They just say, hey, we're going in the arena this day.
Interesting.
But in the same token, they're not a paid user. They use a facility gratis.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just,
And it muddies it up a little bit too with the skating rink sharing equipment with the curling rink. That is a self-sufficient organization. If we did shut down the rink, it shuts down the curling rink. They can't survive on their own. And we've got a pretty successful curling club.
absolutely.
Well, and that's where I often sit there and go, well, is it worth considering going back to where we hired a contractor? At the arena? I don't know what the answer is. Like from a cost perspective, it has potential, but to what degree, like would they all manage? In the past, they managed the bookings, they kept the facility clean, they, you know, supposedly maintained stuff, but really when we took it, when it morphed back to us, and I have no idea how, when, why, or, because all I know is that when I started here, there was an agreement that said that the recreation board was basically doing everything, but we were.
We ran into some difficulty getting contractors to do it. The tenders were getting more and more expensive. And it got to a point where it was cheaper to put 2 3/4 time, was it at the time? 3/4 time staff in there.
Although it may have bounced back now.
It bounced back.
Maybe we're on the 360, maybe it's worthwhile to look at it again.
And it's tricky because like there's a lot of maintenance within the arena too. So if we bounce it back to the operator, we may lose some of that
Well,
continued
Well, I
maintenance.
think there has to be a component of town involved in it, just because of the infrastructure. I don't think it can be totally cut out.
Yeah, I agree.
But it is interesting, just as a point. I went on council 14 years ago for the first time, and this discussion we're having tonight is like just about verbatim of
Yeah.
14 years ago. Things
So why
change,
though?
but they don't change.
Oh, I see, yeah.
It's the same,
With the doe eye,
right? It's
even the
a,
headlights.
but you were there, it's the same issues, same problems.
It's expensive and there's not enough kids using it anymore.
They change, but like I say, they don't change, because even strategic plan, I was probably there when we wrote this one, and we had a consultant come in, and it was very nice, and he was very expensive. And we've also had public consultation, we've had where the public is there. And sometimes it was well attended, sometimes it wasn't. Like, all of these things we've talked about tonight, it's just, it really just is.
And so, okay, so you've talked about it tonight and it's the same discussion. Is it, are the outcomes consistently all the time the same?
Very similar.
So does that mean that we're not achieving what we hope to achieve? Or does that mean we just continue to keep doing the same thing over again?
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, I don't think that there is one solution to this.
Got it.
I don't think there is a silver bullet to it. It's just, you try different things, you see what works.
Sometimes it doesn't,
Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. There isn't one, because if there was a one solution, we would have found it already. And I don't, it's the case.
And well, I guess specific to the arena, the logical way to go, because there's our arena, Alex and Clyde, we're all within a short distance time-wise of each other. It makes the most sense regionally, but yet all of us want to have an arena in our communities.
I agree with
So-
that, Teresa, totally. I think we're gonna have to bite the bullet. Somebody is gonna get a new arena.
Yeah.
Not all three of
I
us.
would agree.
And we're going to have to accept that, and we're gonna have to, financially and support it. And somebody's not gonna get a new arena. It's not possible in today's economic.
But I do think maybe, Brian, that the difference now is that things are different and things are expensive, and people are, like, we see small rural communities drying up all over the place and going back to the county. So it might be a good time to
That's
take
true.
another look at it and look at regional collaboration
That's true.
rather than continue down the same track till we can't do anything with it, and it's, a building has to be taken down.
It needs to be addressed before
Yeah.
we get to that point
Yeah,
where the building
I agree.
is unusable and we don't have any facility.
Yeah.
It's time to do it. But it's gonna take some collaboration between communities
Yeah.
and within the community, that we have to get our mindset that it doesn't have to be
That's right.
Bashaw.
Yeah.
And that you're not gonna lose if Bashaw doesn't get it. It's that you're winning by going to a new arena someplace. It really,
Yeah.
it's time for that.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should look at it again.
And we need to start, because this is gonna be a long process. I would expect it will be maybe a 10-year process.
Yeah.
Well, we make those 10-year plans.
That's good.
Yeah.
So we'll digest this for a while and we'll come up
Okay.
with
So.
bring it back at a future meeting, and we'll come up with some survey information that we want.
So the direction is to bring you back when?
Can we bring it back in January when we've had some time to learn a little bit more about things and do our tours and
Okay.
have our plans and.
Jack,
that
make
sort of
the
thing.
motion?
All in favor? Carried. Good discussion. Committee and staff reports. This should be quick. I attended a forum. Oh, and I attended the organizational meeting in town of Bashaw.
Me too.
Brian,
I've already been approached by some ratepayers as to some issues within the town. But
that was
I think
quick.
I think I solved it, and I don't think I need to discuss it here. So,
In your first hour on council?
yes, my first hour.
It wasn't me.
No, it was not you.
Jackie,
No,
nothing?
no, nothing.
No? Tom?
Shockingly nothing.
Nothing? Cindy?
Nothing at this moment, no.
Wow.
And I apologize, Patrick was planning to attend and give you the opportunity to get acquainted with him. However, he stepped up to learn how to operate the Olympia today. And he's coming to read it because he got staff sick.
Oh,
So he
Next
sends
round,
his
next
regrets.
time.
He is certainly looking forward to joining us though. So within his report here, parks wise, the dead trees along the entrance to town were removed. Tennis and pickleball nets were put away for the season. Beautification committee trees planted in front of the arena. RV parks winterized. Snow fences installed and need to screen more sand. The ice plant has been repaired and the freon level may need to be topped up. Equipment, fuel was removed from the tandem truck. A police report was filed. The tandem truck is out at KJ's for engine repair. There's an oil leak in the front of the engine. Fall cleanup was completed October 4th to 7th. Sewer lift station number 1 by the tennis court was cleaned and the pumps inspected. And we are in the process of arranging for the pumps to be rebuilt. Water meter replacement program is ongoing as time permits. And actually, I believe we have 97 meters, but anyway, that's their reports, they have 85. New staff are enjoying the experience and getting set up for water reporting and emergency management. The virus is ongoing and remaining cautious is still required and following Alberta Health recommendations. And hopefully virus will get under control if everybody does their part to protect themselves and those they need.
Thank you. And your report?
Can I ask a question really quick?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, under equipment, is this the same fuel theft that was reported in the last council meeting, or is this a separate, do we now have a rash of fuel thefts? Or there's like some tampering or something?
I think what happens is with that fuel cap on this unit, or actually one was the grader, and then this was the tandem, the big truck.
Okay, so this is a,
Separate
okay, thank you.
or a recurrence. Yeah, unfortunately. Oh, look at that. Sorry, I misspelled planning. The action list items from October 7th, the Camrose County Planning Services Agreement. The signed agreement has been forwarded to Camrose County. The local business tax penalty exemption, the letter generated and forwarded to the business owner. The water replacement project, additional installation and meter purchases are anticipated to proceed as public works availability is determined. And this could take a bit of time because of course with having a new foreman, we're basically at a point where he's trying to glean as much information as he can, working directly with Murray. And then once Murray has left, we're going to kind of go into more planning gear, and things could be a little chaotic initially, but it's going to be really good. And we're all pretty excited about having some changes in staffing, and it's looking very positive. New ideas and different ways on how to do things, talking about building schedules for things and whatnot. And it sounds pretty promising.
When's Murray done?
Pardon?
When is Murray done?
Murray is done next week on Friday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, the Fortis franchise fee, they've been notified about the fee remaining at 2%. And then the Parkland Regional Library, we have forwarded the approval outstanding from prior meetings. Ramstead Realty has been emailed and an update requested. Just kind of double checking with them if our prices are in alignment or if we need to have a discussion on that. The regional flush truck as outstanding at this point in time. But basically you need to engage with the other two participating members being Balf and Roseland. And so we'll have an idea where we're basically at is the unit is aging out pretty good. So it's one thing for us to just keep it local within Bashaw, but truly taking it out on the highway to, you know, Balf or Roseland for that matter, you know, we're kind of getting to the point where maybe not such a great idea. So that's where it'll be interesting discussion because as a piece of equipment, it has been pretty valuable to have available, whether it warrants, you know, purchase or whether, you know, contracting out the service. I'm not really sure at this point in time, but we'll go from there. And meetings, basically I had a chamber meeting, strategic planning webinar, and then just kind of doing some follow-up meetings with a staff member and day-to-day arena scheduling, human resource follow-up, development permits, arrangements for staff changes. And we have our I forgot the name of this one, but how bad is that? Infrastructure Canada, whatever, ICIP, it's a federal funding for the lagoon. Various walk-in phone inquiries and confirmed title transfer, meeting follow-up and staff support. And then the next page is just our municipal accountability program, the next section that has been completed. So we've managed to pass the other required bylaws that they had recommended within that report. I believe we have the full report on our website. Getting close to where we've got most of the items addressed. There's just a few more specific to, you know, adding the address on our tax notice and a couple of things, but not sure if you guys want to summarize report similar to what I would be forwarding to the to municipal affairs once everything's all complete. But as each component has been completed, it's included within the council meeting minutes. So I guess whatever, if you at any point in time want a full version of the report, like I said, we have it on our website, or else I can arrange to email it to you too.
Okay, thank you, Teresa. Can I have a motion to accept those reports as information?
I will move that we accept council and staff reports as information.
Thank you, Kyle. All in favor? Carried. We have correspondence from the Camrose and Area Lodge Authority, and that was it. We'll send them
The information
the information.
will do.
Excellent. Can I have a motion to accept that as information?
It asks for a designate. Did you want to, or an alternate can also be identified, should we? Or did we think that if you can't make it?
Every single one of the other members on the Camrose Area Lodge Authority outvotes us.
Oh, so we don't have much impact?
None.
We have one vote, Camrose County has 2 votes, and the city of Camrose has 2 votes.
Oh, okay.
So, no, we don't really change.
Are you saying we're not influential?
We are very influential.
Doesn't sound very
I
The
will
straw that stirs the drink.
For the $487 of our requisition, we're very influential.
I will move that we accept correspondence as information.
Thank you, Kyle. All in favor? We have no need of a closed meeting. Next meeting.
First,
Yes, so November 1st and then November 15th.
Is the orientation on the 5th.
Yes, 5th and 16th.
And so you'll send information about start date or start time?
Yep.
you want this all back by,
What do you want there?
If you guys could bring them at the next meeting,
is that soon enough?
it should be.
Yeah, that would
duly
be fine.
the benefit.
No, I think November first will be fine.
Perfect.
Does anyone feel like making a motion to adjourn or we just missed it?
I will make a motion